More of this, and so again, we are watching and we are covering all of this today as we cover the Vice President's visit and also let you know what's going on. There we go, Vice President Pence. There he is, Vice President Pence, right there at the Dalton Convention Center.
There she stood in the street, smiling from my head to her feet. I said, hey, now, what is this? Now, baby, maybe she's in need of a kiss. I said, hey, what's your name, baby? Maybe we can see things the same. Now, don't you wait, oh, hesitate.
And of course, David, right there, you see now Vice President Pence is about to speak. So we want to, of course, listen in a few minutes and make sure that we can hear what he has to say. But of course, getting started a little later than expected. It was at 11:30, but 12:04 now. So the Vice President is there to a cheering and raucous crowd there.
Let's listen in.
It is great to be back in the Peach State. Just 5 days away from another great victory all across the state of Georgia and all across America. And I'm here for one reason and one reason only. Georgia and America need Brian Kemp to be the next governor of the great state of Georgia. I don't know if you knew this, it's actually Brian's birthday today. And I asked him what he wanted for his birthday. I actually asked him what he wanted for his birthday, and he said, without any hesitation, he wanted 4 more years of strong Republican leadership at the State House in Georgia. And speaking of strong Republican leadership, let me bring greetings from a friend of mine this morning. I talked to him this morning. His vice president is here today, but he'll be in Macon on Sunday. Let me bring greetings from the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. Isn't he something? I got to tell you, it's the greatest honor of my life to serve as vice president to a president who gets up every day and fights to keep the promises that he made to the people of Georgia and the people of America. I mean, think about it. Just in the last few weeks alone, new jobs report comes out, 4.2 million new jobs created since Election Day, and unemployment's at a 50-year low. And the unemployment rate for African Americans and Hispanic Americans has set an all-time record, and unemployment for women hasn't been this low in 65 years. The American dream is working again. And we just cut a brand new trade deal with our neighbors to the north and the south. And the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement finally puts American jobs, American workers, and American farmers first. And just a little while back, this president kept another big promise when he saw Justice Brett Kavanaugh confirmed to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. I mean, I got to tell you, I think there's only one way you can describe the last 2 years. It's been 2 years of action. It's been 2 years of results. It's been 2 years of promises made and promises kept. And we're just getting started, Georgia. That's why we need Brian Kemp in the governor's office. I mean, you've got some incredible leadership here. I'm going to talk about Brian in a minute. We all know how he served this state with such integrity. But would you join me in thanking someone who served this state? I served with him in the Congress. I watched him come home to Georgia. Governor Nathan Deal has served the state of Georgia so well, and he has our thanks. Thank you, Governor. And how about your two strong senators who have stood with this administration through thick and thin, Senator Johnny Isakson and Senator David Perdue. And a man I also served with back when I was a congressman. I know he's your hometown congressman, but he's a principled conservative who stood with this president every step of the way. Congressman Tom Graves, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. I mean, I got to tell you, to see the progress that Georgia has made with these leaders, with your leaders at the state level, it's truly been inspiring. I mean, Georgia right now is ranked consistently as the best state in America to do business, actually for 5 years in a row. Great companies like Mercedes and Pulte Homes have moved their headquarters here. Georgia's home to some of the world's greatest companies, Delta Airlines, Home Depot, Coca-Cola. But to keep it going, we got to keep Georgia growing. We got to have Brian Kemp as the next governor of the state of Georgia. I mean, Brian Kemp basically is Georgia, you get right down to it. He embodies Georgia values. And how about his incredible family? Let's hear it for Marty, Jarrett, Lucy, and Amy. That's going to be a great first family for the state of Georgia. But you all know Brian's story, a small businessman for decades. He built his first business, I was told, with nothing more than a pickup truck and a shovel. And he went to work. He's literally created hundreds of jobs across Georgia. He's a man of integrity who's answered the call for public service. He served with great distinction in the state Senate, fought against tax increases, rolled back regulations, and as your Secretary of State, Brian Kemp has made Georgia's government more effective, more accountable for the people that it served, and he saved taxpayers millions of dollars while he did it. That's exactly the kind of leadership you want in the governor's office. I mean, frankly, what Brian Kemp's life is all about, his principles and priorities, just like those that the president's been putting into practice at the national level over the last 2 years. I mean, think about the progress that we've made. Did you know that this president, with the strong support of your senators and Congressman Graves, this president's actually signed more bills rolling back federal red tape than any president in American history. We've unleashed American energy as never before, and we got America out of that disastrous Paris Climate Accord. We got new fair and reciprocal trade deals, not only among our neighbors, but with South Korea. We've already started negotiations with European Union, with Japan, and we put China on notice that the era of massive trade deficits is over. We've been supporting farmers as never before. This administration has been standing with our farmers and ranchers. We're going to get a farm bill done with work requirements for able-bodied adults, and we're going to be there so agriculture in South Georgia comes all the way back after Hurricane Michael. And finally, just like the kind of leadership Brian Kemp's going to bring to Georgia, this president, right before Christmas, signed the largest tax cuts and tax reform in American history. We cut taxes for working families. We cut taxes for businesses, and we cut out the core of Obamacare. The individual mandate is gone. And you know what Governor Deal just told me is because of those massive historic tax cuts, for the first time ever, Georgia was able to cut income taxes for working families all across the state. Thank you, Governor. I mean, the truth is, in case you haven't noticed, with the policies President Trump's been advancing and the policies that Brian Kemp will advance and keep going here in Georgia, confidence is back. Jobs are coming back. In a word, America is back, and we're just getting started. It's true. But you all here in Georgia know that what we know, that it's not just about jobs and the economy and growth. Everything begins with security. And you know, I got to tell you, as the proud father of a United States Marine, I couldn't be more proud to serve with a president who cares so deeply about the men and women of our armed forces and their families. With the support of our partners in Congress, President Trump has already signed the largest increase in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan. We're rebuilding our military and restoring the arsenal of democracy. And we've been standing with our veterans as never before. All new accountability at the VA, people that aren't providing the health care that our veterans earned in the uniform of the United States are gone. And now our veterans have real choice, veterans' choice for world-class health care. And this president, just like Brian Kemp will do, has stood without apology for the rule of law. President Trump's been appointing strong conservatives to our courts at every level, not just the Supreme Court. Last year, President Trump set a record, the most Court of Appeals judges confirmed in a single year than any president in American history, and they are all principled, conservative men and women who will uphold the God-given liberties in our Constitution, like the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms in the Second Amendment. And like Brian Kemp, President Trump has stood without apology for the sanctity of human life at home and abroad. And it's not just security, our national defense, and our veterans and our courts, but it's also about standing with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement. You know, last Saturday, in the midst of that tragedy in Pittsburgh, the nation saw once again the courage and selflessness of our law enforcement officers. 11 members of the Jewish community in Pittsburgh lost their lives in the midst of that horrific attack. Some 6 others were injured, including 4 members of the law enforcement community. They ran into the face of danger, and their efforts undoubtedly saved lives. As the President and I have made clear, this attack was not just criminal, it was evil. The justice in this case will be swift and severe. We will not allow violence or anti-Semitism to take hold in the United States of America. This week, the President and the First Lady traveled to Pittsburgh to pay their respects to the fallen and carry the prayers and condolences of the American people to that entire community In the days ahead, I promise you, we're going to work closely with leaders at every level to bring these senseless acts of violence to an end. We're going to work together, as President Trump said, to rise above the hate, to move past the divisions, to embrace our common destiny as Americans. And we will always support the men and women of law enforcement who protect our families, protect our lives at the risk of their own. And with that renewed support for law enforcement, we've been removing dangerous criminals from our streets at record numbers. We've also been enforcing our laws. We've been securing our borders. And we've already started to build that wall. You know, Brian Kemp knows what this president knows. We have a crisis of illegal immigration in this country. It's maybe never been more obvious than in the last few weeks, as we've seen a migrant caravan make their way from Central America, now making their way through Mexico. You know, as the president said, the thousands of people that are coming north for the sole purpose of violating our laws and attempting to come in to our country illegally are nothing short of an assault on our country, and it will not be allowed. The truth is, these caravans are being used by leftist groups organized by human traffickers with no regard for human life. I mean, the simple truth is these human traffickers profit by taking advantage of loopholes in the laws of our country to entice vulnerable families with young children and the elderly, to make the long and dangerous journey up the peninsula. But the truth is, they're also being driven by the dangerous policies of the Democratic Party. I mean, think about it. Democrats don't want to build a wall. They don't want to secure our border. They don't want to close immigration loopholes that human traffickers use every day to exploit vulnerable people in Central America. And frankly, many of the leading voices in the Democratic Party today are calling on our country to abolish immigrations and customs enforcement. But let me make you a promise. With President Donald Trump in the White House and Brian Kemp in the State House, we will never abolish ICE. We will stand with those men and women in law enforcement. I mean, I heard just the other day that Stacey Abrams, Brian's opponent, actually said, that brave law enforcement officers who work with ICE are, in her words, terrorizing families. That's no surprise, though. Stacey Abrams wants illegal immigrants to get taxpayer-funded benefits. And I read where she actually said that the blue wave that's supposed to be coming to Georgia includes those who are, and I quote, documented and undocumented. Well, let me tell you something. If that's the blue wave coming, it's going to hit a red, white, and blue wall right here in the state of Georgia. And I'll make you a promise. With Brian Kemp as your governor, President Donald Trump in the White House, and with renewed Republican majorities on Capitol Hill, we're going to build that wall. We're going to secure that border. We're going to close the loopholes in our immigration laws, and we're going to end this crisis of illegal immigration once and for all. So it's about the progress, the prosperity. It's about this outstanding candidate that you got before you today. But you all have a choice to make. And the people of Georgia, in just a few days, are going to face a choice, and it couldn't be more distinct. Not just for the reasons that I just said, but the choice between Brian Kemp and Stacey Abrams couldn't be more stark. I mean, Brian Kemp is going to cut your taxes after he becomes governor. Stacey Abrams says you're going to raise your taxes by more than $300 million. Brian Kemp's going to cut regulations, get government off your back. Stacey Abrams is going to make Georgia's government bigger than ever before. In her words, she's going to have a government that's there for you, quote, from cradle to career. Brian Kemp's going to fight for Georgia's farmers, ranchers, and producers, including Georgia's pecan farmers, poultry producers, and everybody hit so hard by these difficult storms. And his opponent, I'm told, actually said, quote, people shouldn't have to go into agriculture to make a living in Georgia. And I just heard the other day, Brian Kemp's getting the support of all kinds of hard-working, good people all across Georgia, and Stacey Abrams being bankrolled by Hollywood liberals, sending their support into the state, and some of them come into the state. Like I heard Oprah is in town today. And I heard Will Ferrell was going door to door the other day. Well, I'd like to remind Stacey and Oprah and Will Ferrell, I'm kind of a big deal too. You get that? And I got a message. I got a message for all Stacey Abrams' liberal Hollywood friends. This ain't Hollywood. This is Georgia. And Georgia wants a governor that's going to put Georgia values and Georgia first. And Brian Kemp's going to do just that. So you got a great candidate. We've made great progress in the last 2 years. And you've got a choice to make. But I recognize, this is the next 5 days is going to be critical. Because, the truth is that these first midterm elections for the party that's in the White House are challenging. That's what the conventional wisdom says. And it's actually been true for the Republican Party for every election for the last 100 years except for 2. Conventional wisdom says it's going to be tough to re-elect our majorities in Washington, D.C., and to elect Republican governors and state houses across the country. That's the conventional wisdom. But I think we all know what President Donald Trump thinks of conventional wisdom. We made history in 2016, and we're going to make history again in 2018 when we elect Brian Kemp as the governor of the state of Georgia and re-elect Republican leaders across this country. We're going to do it. But it's going to take all of us to do it. So I got 3 things I want to ask you to do before I got a plane to catch and miles to go before I sleep. Number one, I want you to decide right here, right now, if you haven't already done it, that you are going to vote Georgia. You're going to vote to make Brian Kemp the next governor of Georgia. Okay? Remember, these elections are won by the people that show up, right? And remember, friends don't let friends vote alone. Go out and find a family member, a neighbor at worship, at work, and just, grab them by the elbow and ask them, have you voted yet? And if they haven't, make sure they get to the polls before they close on Election Day in 5 days. Second thing is I want you to go tell somebody, the truth of the matter is I've been thinking a lot about this time 2 years ago. There weren't a whole lot of pundits out there that thought the president and I would be moving to Washington, D.C. But Georgia knew different. And thank God. And, but I tell you what, I never doubted it, neither did he. And I think the reason was because we were out with all of you. And we saw the enthusiasm, and we knew that people across Georgia were talking to one another, that people here in Dalton were talking to their neighbors and friends. And so that's what I want to encourage you to do this time around, You just say, you know, I ran into Mike the other day in Dalton. And he and Governor Deal and Senator Isaacson and Senator Perdue are all fired up about making Brian Kemp the next governor of the state of Georgia. And so you got to go tell them. Just tell them about this good man. Tell them about this man of integrity. Tell them about the foundation in his life, the great family, his proven conservative record to be able to build on the momentum for the state of Georgia. Tell them about the choice that we made. Just tell them with Brian Kemp in the State House. You ain't seen nothing yet, Georgia. And lastly, I'd encourage you to do one more thing. And this one I know Brian and I, we bonded very early because we both stand on the same rock. And I will tell you, you know, in the 5 days that remain here, it seems like across this country, there's more focus on what divides us in America than ever before in my lifetime. But I'll always believe, and I know Brian believes, there will always be more that unites us in these United States of America than will ever divide us. And chief among that is faith. The American people have faith in one another. Our faith in freedom is grounded in our belief in the boundless capacity of any individual to improve themselves, and given the freedom and the opportunity to do it. But it's also grounded in that other kind of faith. And so I'd encourage you to exercise that in the days ahead. And on this one, I know that Brian and his family won't mind. I'm actually not talking about a candidate or a campaign or a party or a cause. You know, in these two divided of times in America, I just encourage you to bow the head and bend the knee and pray for America. Pray for all the people of America. Pray for all of the people of this one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, because prayer matters. And with His grace, we'll heal this land. So thank you all for coming out. Thanks for hearing me out. And honestly, let me say to neighbors here in Dalton, on behalf of my little family, you know, this grandson of an Irish immigrant, grew up in a small town in southern Indiana. Thank you for the privilege of serving as your vice president. It is the greatest honor in my life. It is. Thank you. But I leave here today with a grateful heart and with renewed confidence. I really do. Seeing all of you out here today, I'll tell you what. With Brian Kemp in the State House, with renewed Republican majorities in the Congress of the United States, with renewed Republican leadership at every level all across the state of Georgia, President Donald Trump in the White House, and with God's help, I just know we will make Georgia and America more prosperous than you could possibly imagine. We will make Georgia and America safer than ever before. And if we do all we need to do in what remains of this election season in the next 5 days, we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you. God bless Georgia, and God bless America.
Alrighty, and of course, just wrapped up there, Vice President Mike Pence, and he brought back up Secretary of State, Republican gubernatorial candidate Brian Kemp and his wife. And David, one of the things too, he spoke for